So we're moving on here to part three of this journey. And Prague was always going to be a little bit different because we're meeting up with a couple of friends, Doctors Chapman and Chapman, who were doing their third wedding ceremony, this one in the Czech Republic, to benefit friends and family in the area, but also giving them a chance to invite in friends from around the world, who they were then going to take on a tour of some of the surrounding towns as well as Prague, and that group got to be as large as 12, which made for some pretty interesting adventures. Sarah and I arrived a day early so that we would have a little time to check out a couple of things that we didn't think the whole group would be interested in. And so we took the day to go into Prague all on our own. The first thing that we checked out was Alfonso Mucha's Slav epic. And this is a really interesting set of pieces, 20 paintings, following the history of the Slavic peoples. And this is the first painting right here, and it's kind of hard to see, but you've got sort of a proto-Slavic Adam and Eve who are being pushed out of their homeland. And that's the first painting, and then you actually follow especially a character who continues to look like her on and off, which is just sort of a stand-in in every woman for the Slavic people. And as you can see over here, that's somebody in front of this particular painting. These things are absolutely phenomenally large, beautifully painted. Mucha is always great for color and composition. It's a little bit heavy-handed. It's very, I would say, self-conscious in its attempt of creating great history painting that can frame the history of the Slavic people, and it's pretty successful at the same time. I would highly recommend. The second place we went to was the sort of big museum in town, which is in the Sternberg Palace. And the Sternberg Palace, for the most part, doesn't have a great collection. It had a couple of really good Albrecht-Dürers. There were other pieces that were worth seeing, but compared to Budapest and to Vienna, just not as large of a collection. The one really big highlight is I hadn't been able to take any pictures in Schönbrunn Palace in Vienna, and they had one of the china cabinets in this museum in a room completely installed on its own. So what you're seeing here is a portion of that china cabinet, which is a small Rococo room that has little details like this that are in white and blue that are meant to look like the porcelain paintings, the glaze paintings on pieces coming out of China at a time where there was a big appetite for it, but China had a sort of monopoly on the technology. You can see this piece up close here, and you can also see in the black painted on the wall behind it, there's an attempt to look like lacquer woodwork. Really interesting. I'm going to have some great pictures of this sort of Orientalism in Berlin when I get there. It's worth mentioning that we were getting around all of these towns due to their fantastic and very affordable public transportation. And what you're seeing right here is one of the stations that we saw that I thought looked a lot like it had a Dalek or Doctor Who theme. But for transport for the day, anything you want to take within the sort of city and metro area, $5.50. Absolutely fantastic. On the right, you can see our lunch for the day. And when we were playing on our own, it was a little easier to try all kinds of wild and crazy stuff. This was called the Bohemian platter and includes a quarter of a duck. You've got this crazy potato pancake thing here. There's a sausage in the back, 2 different types of dumplings. And in the Czech Republic, a dumpling seems to be more like a dumpling loaf that you sort of saw up and soak in gravy. You've got 2 different types of cabbage. It was just fantastic. So the next day, our big group got onto public transit and went to a nearby town, Kutna Hora. And one of the things that I was most looking forward to there is the church you see in front of you. It's built from the Gothic period until about, I think, 1915 or so. It just keeps being built. um, but it's mostly built within that Gothic tradition. You can see the flying buttresses here, absolutely beautiful. At some point, probably in World War One, a lot of the stained glass was lost, and it's been replaced with Art Nouveau stained glass. But a lot of the exterior portions have either been restored or were undamaged. And so on your right, you can see a fantastic Gothic style, though made in the Renaissance period, gargoyle that was meant to drain water away. You're actually looking up into the drain, and just in keeping with the Doctor Who theme, this guy playing the guitar looked an awful lot like a stone angel to me. We also went down into a medieval mine, but I don't have a lot of great pictures of that. I do have, though, some really good pictures, and I hear complaints sometimes that I'm not in enough of them. Sarah and I are not in enough of them. We have some good pictures here from our second site, which is Kostenice, where somebody got kind of creative with the massive amount of human remains that were left after the plague ravished. It was the second round of the plague. So this is us in front of a family crest, all made of bones, human bones. And this is the chandelier with skulls on pillars. You can see piles of human bones in the background here. It was a really interesting spot. So the next day, we all got onto public transit and went for the sort of traditional highlights, beautiful sights Prague tour. And it was a lot of fun. What you're seeing here is the St. Charles Bridge, which was meant to compete with the Ponte Sant'Angelo, the bridge leading to the Pontiff's Castle in the Vatican that has a bunch of Bernini sculptures. And you can see one of the sculptures here, not Bernini, but meant to compete with Bernini. And in the distance, you can see right here, Prague Castle, with another absolutely gorgeous Gothic church rising out right there. Now, the Czech Republic boasts the most castles and castle ruins, but I should point out, in this part of Europe, the word for castle and palace are pretty much the same thing, and so you're not going to see sort of, turrets and arrow holes in quite the same way, and that might have to do with the time period at which most of these palaces were built. One of my favorite things to do on this trip, when meeting up with friends, was to do what I was told the Czech people like to do when they get together with friends, which was, bend the elbow and have a couple of glasses of beer. And so this is a place we went to called the Pub, in which there is a tap. You can see the spouts right here. There's one on the opposite side. 4 different spouts on the table, and you just keep pouring away. And each person, you can see here, the highlighted ones are us, they keep track on this screen of the number of liters you're drinking. This wasn't much of a competition. We were all pretty tired. Some of us had had a beer or 2 with dinner. I just want to point out, I'm number 3. That's the most liters. Ha ha ha. At the top, you could actually see a readout of you against all the pubs in the Czech Republic. And I believe we're right here. We're not in any jeopardy of making the finals. But like I said, it wasn't a competition, but I won. The next day, all of us got onto a bus, and we went to another town, this one a pretty good distance away, called Český Krumlov. This town today is a big tourist attraction because it's built on a medieval plan that follows this sort of peninsula that juts out into this beautiful river, and all of these streets curve with it. And so we went to a restaurant that claimed to be able to do medieval cuisine. And this one goes out to my friend, Professor Brian Sinclair. We both have been asking, where is our meat on swords, for a number of years now, and I had to go all the way to the Czech Republic, but check it out. That was a shish kebab that I pulled off of the sword you see right there. So, Professor Sinclair, if you want, I have the address of the place. I don't think they deliver, but it was well worth the trip. We did something kind of unconventional and took a raft down the river in the middle of this town, and it was a really great way to get to see things like this Romanesque through modern built church. It was also a tremendous amount of fun. The next day, we woke up and had a tour of the castle, and here's where you could see that the town had been fairly heavily restored for the purpose of being a tourist attraction. This is a Renaissance tower and Renaissance palace, and all of the brick that you see here, all of these areas that are niches that would be enclosing statues, those are all painted on, and they're heavily modern in their look. Very, very recent restoration. There's no reason for me to include the next photo, but I really liked it. This is the woman who was doing the drink service on the bus we were taken back, being menaced by that bus. Yeah, that's right. That's the bus driver chasing her with the garbage from the previous trip. You never know what you're going to see, but you know you're going to be entertained. That night, we made it back to Prague, and we attended an opera in the oldest Baroque opera house in Prague, the place where Mozart's Don Giovanni was premiered. We were seeing a different Mozart opera, which was The Magic Flute. It was really a tremendous amount of fun. I've never attended an opera where I could sit in a box like this. We're about the third row up. There were boxes above, boxes below. Everyone had a great view. The sound was fantastic. And just so you know, there is some modernization here. Right here, that showed subtitles in German and English the entire time, making it very, very easy to follow. The last day that we were in Prague was the wedding itself. And that's a private event, so I'm not going to show you the wedding itself, but I will show you the castle where it happened. And this is in Jemništa. This castle is a fairly modest palace compared to those that we've seen, but really quite impressive. We took a tour after the ceremony, and something really kind of unexpected happened. Now, for those of you who know Dr. Chapman, he is a guitar professor at MJC and an amazing concert guitarist. And when we finished in a chapel that was supposed to have absolutely fantastic acoustics. And he snapped his fingers while our tour guide was talking about the acoustics to hear how good the acoustics were. And she sort of got into a conversation with him, and we had to get authorization. But in the end, instead of having a private concert by Dr. Chapman in the gardens, it was decided that it would be best to have it in this absolutely beautiful chapel. And so I'm going to end here with this gorgeous image of Dr. Chapman playing in a Baroque chapel. Now at this point, I've actually been in Berlin for 4 days, and I'm going to fly back tomorrow. And so it'll take me a couple of days to put those photos together, but in a couple of days, check back, and I should have my final log for Berlin, which was absolutely fabulous as well.